This is actually a perfect transition to our relationship with Saudi Arabia, which has been completely shifted. The Biden administration has been basically decided to completely turn their policy upside down now that they are forced to go and grovel to the Saudis to try to, increase the oil coming from the spigots. And Biden has decided to meet with Saudi Arabia. And just as a reminder, this is a country that he said on the campaign trail he wanted to make into a pariah state. Now he's writing an op-ed that is justifying his imminent visit to that country. Let's go ahead and put this up on the screen. So it says, Joe Biden, why I'm going to Saudi Arabia. This is in the Washington Post. And there was basically one honest sentence in here as far as I could tell. He says, its energy resources are vital for mitigating the impact on global supplies of Russia's war in Ukraine. So even though the Saudis have been horrific actors, what they have done in Yemen is an absolute atrocity. Of course, murdering Jamal Khashoggi, which Washington Post, a writer there, journalist there. In spite of all of that, he's now like, well, I gotta go and beg and bend a knee for them to turn the spigots back on. And he has this line in here that I think is really, really disingenuous, which is, he says, Saagar, from the start, my aim was to reorient, not rupture, relations with a country that's been a strategic partner for 80 years. Today, Saudi Arabia has helped to restore unity among the 6 countries of Gulf Cooperation Council, has fully supported the truce in Yemen, and is now working with my experts to help stabilize oil markets with other OPEC producers. Okay, again, what he said on the campaign trail is he wanted to make them a pariah state. Those were the words. So that was your indication there was, oh, you just wanted to reorient the relationship? Okay.
What bothers me about this is that the Biden administration are capable of being realists. They're like, okay, well, Saudi Arabia, they got the most amount of available oil that they could pump immediately to alleviate the global supply. That means that we're going to have to go over there hat in hand to the murderous crown prince, MBS, hat in hand. So they're capable, and they're also capable of saying, and this is a barbaric people who, and I'm talking about the leadership, who behead people in the streets and barely allowed women to drive like a decade ago and continue to cover them up and have lack of human rights for many people who live there. So they're capable of just putting all that in their mind and saying, but at the end of the day, cheap oil is worth it. But then if I say something like that about Ukraine, then I'm anti-democracy, and then it's all about human rights and the global order and all this stuff. And I can't say, well, why not? Why doesn't the same application of thought apply in this instance? And they're like, oh, well, it's just different. Well, why is it different? It's like, well, Saudi Arabia commits, effectively like a mass famine on Yemen in their bombing campaign, which we supported them in the past. Why is that not equivalent in any way to what's happening in Ukraine? And the fact is that it is, especially in terms of a humanitarian tragedy. But it all falls apart because they're incapable of just saying the truth, which is they care more about Ukraine than this. And so they're willing to sacrifice on their stated ideals for cheap oil in the Saudi relationship than they are in the Russian relationship. That then opens the question of, well, which one actually is worth it? Also, why are we so dependent on this country in the first place? Second, should we really be allowing this amount of influence, cash and more, and to be completely understated by the U.S. elite when they are, supplicating themselves to our interests in Eastern Europe, which are supposedly triumph this? All it shows you is how empty the rhetoric of the administration is on human rights, on standing up to dictators, all of this. They don't actually, and also that's why I don't really support speaking in that rhetoric at all. All foreign policy is national interest. All. You can try and hide it under guise of whatever you would like, but at the end of the day, oil is oil, and the price is what it is. Our relations with countries should always be dependent on what we get from them and what they get from us. Our relationship with the Saudis has long been one where we hand them some $100 billion a year in arms, and they basically tell us, that's still not enough. Right. You still have to supplicate yourself. Right. Even though we guarantee your defense, even though we basically have been the guarantor of the regime since the 1970s. So even though 15 out of their 19 citizens crash into our towers, they're the major exporter of world terrorism, have probably done more to hurt the interests of the United States in the Middle East and elsewhere, especially amongst the Islamic community, than any single other nation on earth. not to mention their own personal barbarism, that's all completely fine.
Yeah.
It's like that's what, it drives me crazy.
Yeah, it actually is remarkable how much the Biden foreign policy in the Middle East has turned into the Trump foreign policy in the Middle East. I mean, they have a little bit of different rhetoric around Israel, but in terms of the big dramatic changes that Trump made with regards to Israel and Palestine, the Biden administration has not actually rolled any of those back. And they also, they're not back in the Iranian nuclear deal. I mean, the Trump administration pulled us out of the Iranian nuclear deal, so they were more sort of like aggressive about it. The Biden administration is pretending to negotiate it, but at the same time, they're hardening this anti-Iran alliance that was also the brainchild of the Trump administration.
Yeah, that's true.
In a lot of ways, I mean, you'll recall Trump's first overseas visit was to Saudi Arabia, so Biden's a little bit late in getting there, but he also was going hand in hand to suck up to the Saudis. So it is kind of incredible the way that, and a lot of this has been forced by the Russia-Ukraine conflict, where they may have wanted to go in a different direction, but now that they've chosen to go all in on this proxy war with Russia and this sort of like global, new global world order, it has forced their hand on Saudi Arabia and basically pushed them into the position where the Trump administration was. So it really is pretty remarkable. And I can't ignore also the media's role in choosing which conflicts, which crises, which humanitarian disasters are worthy of your outrage and you're sort of like playing on your emotions and which aren't. If you saw Yemen in the news and the, on the ground reporting and the horrific atrocities, I mean, the pictures of the kids and the babies there and what they have been put through, in large part by Saudi with our support, there is no doubt the American people would be just outraged. They'd be beside themselves. They'd be looking at this trip to Saudi and go, what the hell are you doing? I mean, it's bad enough people know what happened to Jamal Khashoggi, and that creates some reluctance, but they saw what was going on in Yemen and explained it in the same emotional terms that are used to talk about the conflict and the disaster and the humanitarian crisis in Ukraine. There would be a very different public perception around this shift in policy from the Biden administration. So it shows you how powerful the media is in terms of what conflicts they choose to highlight and what conflicts they don't. I haven't seen a lot of Yemeni flags on liberal bumpers around the DMV region, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
100%. And actually, I think the American people are with you. I think the elites are the ones who are not. They know what happened on 9/11. Everybody knows what happened on 9/11. And remember also that the Saudis and the Bush family spent $2 billion on an ad campaign to be like, no, it wasn't on us. It was just our citizens and our ideology that happened as a result of all of this. And also, we protected bin Laden and backed the Taliban for a long time. But hey, don't worry about all that. Come, businessmen, please keep coming to Riyadh and we'll keep the gas pumps on. That's been the American policy for 20 years. I think if you were to ask Americans, it was really elite Americans who cared most about Khashoggi. Most people had already hated Saudi Arabia for a long time. But the elites don't care. And so the Ukrainian, the Yemeni flag, the Ukrainian flag is the new flag of America that we see here in the Washington suburban area. And we decided that is the one that we care about the most, and it trumps all other interests. And so we're allowed to be realists in every other area of the world, except in this one, which has become some sort of a holy war. And that's exactly the problem, which leads to bad thinking and which can lead you down a road which you do not want to go to and which you may regret very much in the future.
Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.